Thank you.
The council meeting of February 21st, 2023 will now please come to order at 8:02 p.m. The audience is invited to join council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Broussard.
Present.
Ms. Gilchrist.
Here.
Mr. Glusper.
Here.
Ms. Heeman.
Here.
Mr. Limpert.
Present.
Mr. Madden.
Here.
Mr. Stahl.
Present.
Ms. Williamson.
Here.
If there are no additions or corrections, the council meeting minutes of February 7th, 2023 are approved as written. The following legislation is considered for suspension of the rules this evening. On second reading, Resolution 2023-5, Resolution 2023-12, and Resolution 2023-16. And then on first reading, Resolution 2023-26. Moving into reports, Mayor Daley Jones, do you have a report this evening?
I do, Mr. President. Thank you. Good evening. Happy Shrove Tuesday, everyone. Obviously, that means that tomorrow is Ash Wednesday, kicking off the Lenten season. And with that in mind, our North Olmsted Fish Fry events will begin this Friday. Each event will be sponsored by a different North Olmsted organization. This Friday, February 24th, will be the North Olmsted High School After Prom serving at this event. And March 3rd is I Wear Gray for Calvin. March 10th is the North Olmsted Kiwanis Club. March 17th is North Olmsted High School Boys and Girls Soccer Teams. March 24th is the Bretton Ridge Women's Club. And March 31st is the St. Brendan Catholic Church. And all tips that are given on those days go directly to the organizations that are volunteering for those evenings. Both dine-in and takeout options are available, and the times for the fish fry each Friday is 4 until 7:30 p.m. at our Springvale Ballroom. I'm excited to share that this Saturday at 1 p.m. will be the grand opening and ribbon cutting for our newly improved field house at the North Olmsted Recreation Center. I hope that you will all come to be part of this event, which will officially unveil the new, recently installed artificial turf. After a brief ceremony, the rec center will have music and family-friendly activities for the balance of the afternoon. And please, if you can attend, let us know. Tax preparation assistance. The North Olmsted Senior Center is partnering with the Cleveland Housing Network and the Cuyahoga EITC Coalition to offer free tax preparation to North Olmsted residents making less than $60,000 per year. Free tax preparation for our community will take place on March 30th and 31st at the Senior Center from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. The Cuyahoga EITC Coalition has been assisting residents since 2005 as part of the IRS Volunteer Income Tax Assistant Program. Appointments are required and will be accepted beginning March 1st. Call the Senior Center at 440-777-8100 to book your appointment. And please, council members, let your residents know about this important service that we can offer our residents right here in North Olmsted. The American Red Cross hosts monthly blood drives in the North Olmsted Community Cabin on the first Wednesday of every month from 1 until 7 p.m. The next date is Wednesday, March 1st. To schedule your donation appointment, call 1-800-RED-CROSS. Next Tuesday, March 28th, is the date of the next Maple PTA Mobile Produce Pantry in collaboration with the Cleveland Food Bank. Free fresh produce will be available at Maple Intermediate School. This is a drive-through service. An educational presentation, Saving Money with Medicare, will be held by appointment only at the North Olmsted Senior Center beginning March 1st. You can learn more at refundohio.org. The North Olmsted Community Council is accepting applications for the 2023 Citizen of the Year. Nomination deadline is April 7th. You can download the nomination form and complete it directly from the city's website. The opening evening reception for the annual North Olmsted Mayor's Art Show will take place on Wednesday, March 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Old Town Hall. The show will be open to the community following that event on both Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, March 9th, 10th, and 11th. I will present my first State of the City address at 7 p.m. on Thursday, March 9th at Springvale Ballroom, beginning at 7 p.m. Doors open at 6:30. The evening is free and open to all North Olmsted residents. And I hope that all of our North Olmsted City Council members will be able to attend. My appointed directors will be in attendance as well to answer resident questions after that speech. Then from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. the following Thursday, March 16th, the North Olmsted Chamber of Commerce and the city are partnering to present a business development luncheon specifically for North Olmsted business leaders and owners. This event will feature a slightly different message from myself as mayor and will definitely have an economic development focus. You're all invited to attend that as well. And Mr. President, thank you. That concludes my report this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Director of Law Garreau, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. I do. Just a quick update. After the initial legislation to authorize the contract to purchase the schools, and then legislation, school buildings, and legislation to borrow the funds to pay for the school buildings, legislation to go ahead and proceed with environmental reports. The reports were finished, came back, they're unremarkable. We have, the time actually between the signing of the contract and the anticipated closing date is anywhere between 120 and potentially 150 days. We are scheduled tentatively, hopefully, to close on the 28th and transfer the buildings to the city of North Olmsted. So we've been working with the title agency to get everything squared away and get that taken care of. It is a long kind of process, and it is a little different when you have to do the legislation and 3 readings and all the good stuff that goes along with it, versus if it's a private entity where you can just go out and go to the bank, get your funds, and be done with it. But we are set to close, and if there's barring any unforeseen circumstances, that's the tentative date is next week, and that should bring that matter to a close. And you have legislation to demo the buildings on for tonight on 2nd reading, coming up on 3rd reading, so it's moving along. So just wanted to bring you up to date. And I know the mayor is a volunteer with the after prom committee, so perhaps we'll see you up there working the tables, working the tables at the fish fry, or maybe not.
Director Garreau, I will be, actually.
Maybe I'll stop by and you can bring me some fish. So support that after prom committee. But anyways, thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Mr. President,
Thank you.
I have a quick question on that. I should have brought it up in caucus, but there was a note from the clerk to amend 2023-13. Can we clarify what that is?
To remove the emergency clause.
The emergency clause, thank you, that's right, okay.
Okay. Moving into council committee reports. Councilwoman Williamson, Chairwoman of the Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee met on February 14th at 7 p.m. Present were committee members Williamson, Madden, and Glassburn, council members Gilchrist, Heeman, Limpert, and Scarl, the mayor, law director, directors of finance, human resources, economic development, safety, service, recreation, and special assistant to the mayor and guests. First item on the agenda was Resolution 2023-16, which reads, a resolution adopting the Cuyahoga County 2022 to 2027 All Hazards Mitigation Plan and further directing the implementation thereof and declaring an emergency. Director Schofield explained that the All Hazards Mitigation Plan must be updated every 5 years. The City of North Olmsted is required to submit for approval a plan that outlines the processes for identifying natural hazards, risks, and vulnerabilities. The submission is required in order to receive any funding from the county in the event of a disaster. A motion was made to recommend approval of Resolution 2023-16 to all of council, and that motion passed with a vote of 3-0. The next item on the agenda was Ordinance 2023-17, which is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement with Pathmaster Incorporated to install glance GPS, preemption, and priority traffic control signalization systems through the state purchase program at a cost of $305,635 in approved ARPA funds, and upon approval of the Board of Control, further authorizing the mayor to execute contract documents and declaring an emergency. Director Schofield explained that this purchase was discussed during the ARPA funding discussions. The GPS equipment will be installed on existing systems triggered by sirens. The GPS program is more effective and provides greater traffic control and safety for our public safety officers, fire, and the public. Motion was made to recommend approval of ordinance 2023-17 to all of council. That motion passed with a vote of 3-0, and the meeting concluded at 7:08 PM. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Chairman of the Building, Zoning, and Development Committee, do you have a report?
I do have a report this evening, Mr. President. Thank you. The Building Zone Development Committee met on 14 February 2023, 7:05 PM. Present were committee members Limpert, Williamson, and Heeman, council members Scarl, Gilchrist, Glassburn, and Madden, Mayor, Director of Finance, Law Director, Safety Director, Service Director, HR Director, Economic Development Director, and guests on the agenda. First was case number 22-21179, Low Cost Pharmacy at 26901 Brook Park Extension. There was a request to approve a drive-through at this location for pharmacy drive-through. The Economic Development Director noted that this has been a working application since January and didn't feel comfortable approving the plan as administrative review, therefore it was brought to Planning Commission and Council. In the meeting, they discussed the modifications and removement of parking spaces in order to accommodate the drive-through. There was some concern by council members about how that would affect traffic flow. The planning director noted that there wasn't any concern from neighboring businesses who had been notified, and the motion to recommend was approved in committee by a vote of 3-0. Next on the agenda was ordinance to amend section 1118.13 of the Planning and Zoning Code of the codified ordinances of the City of North Olmsted entitled Offices and Services in order to limit the location of specified uses. In section C of that section regarding tattoo, body branding, hookah lounges, drug paraphernalia, smoke shops or similar, there is an additional note that was added. The use shall be located at least 2,500 feet measured lot line to lot line from the nearest place of worship, park or recreation center, school or daycare facility. And that motion was passed by the committee by a vote of 3-0. And last on the agenda was Resolution 2023-13, which was for the school demolition bids for the Spruce Elementary School and Forest Elementary Schools to be demolished as detailed in the specifications on file. There were inquiries related to if there was any other modifications or grading that were going to be done to Forest School, which the director noted that this was strictly related to the effective demolition of the properties, and some other notes just on in general, but the motion passed by a vote of 3-0 to recommend that going out for contracting for the demolition of those schools. And at this time, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to recommend PDC case number 22-21179 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to approve PDC case number 22-21179 made by Councilman Limpert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
PDC case number 22-21179 is approved by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. President, I didn't note the time of the ending of the meeting, which was at 7:30 PM. And that concludes my report. Oh,
You have to amend.
oh, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. President, if I could clarify, if I could request to amend Resolution 2023-13 to remove the emergency clause and ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion to amend Resolution 2023-13 made by Councilman Limpert and seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Glassberg?
Yes.
Motion to amend Resolution 2023-13 passes by a vote of 7-0. Councilwoman Heeman, Chairwoman of the Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings Committee. Do you have a report?
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. The Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings Committee meeting was held on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. The meeting was called to order at 7:34 PM. Present were committee members Heeman, Scarl, and Lippert, all ward and at-large council members, the mayor, all directors, the special assistant to the mayor, Brett Smith from Springvale, and Tiffany Hunt from our senior center. The committee met to discuss resolutions 2023-5, 2023-14, and 2023-15. First on the agenda was Resolution 2023-5, a resolution authorizing the Director of Recreation and Public Engagement to solicit bids for sprayer equipment for application of fertilizer at Springvale Golf Course, and upon approval of the Board of Control, further authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder and declaring an emergency. Ms. Heeman opened the discussion by stating that this item was in the budget and was presented during the budget meetings, but that the issue now is that there is not a state bid available for this item, and that is why the resolution before us now seeks to request bids for this piece of equipment. The new sprayer is in the price range of $77,000 to $80,000, and there is no change in that pricing as it was set forth during the budget process. There is, however, a lag time in the delivery, which could be approximately 12 to 18 months from the time of the order. Director Pinchuk continued explaining the requested equipment is a new sprayer for the Springvale Golf Course to replace the 1998 sprayer, which has been continually repaired and will either become a backup piece of equipment or offered as a trade-in. In 2011, a new sprayer was purchased for the use on the greens only, but that is now being shared for the greens and the golf course in its entirety because the 1998 sprayer has outlived its usefulness. Ms. Heeman made a motion to recommend to all of council Resolution 2023-5, seconded by Mr. Scarl. Motion passed 3-0. Next on the agenda was Resolution 2023-14, a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the senior center and community cabin kitchen renovation project, as detailed in specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval by the Board of Control, to enter into a contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Ms. Heeman opened the discussion by stating that this item was in the budget and was presented during the budget meetings, that all of the funds being utilized for the cabin and senior center kitchen renovations are from the second round of funds provided by the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funding, and not directly from the city funds. Director Pinchuk outlined that the architect services have been supplied and that the construction is scheduled to begin during May or June of 2023, and that the expected first use of the new kitchen spaces is anticipated to be July 2023. Ms. Heeman made a motion to recommend to all council Resolution 2023-5, seconded by Mr. Scarl. That motion passed 3-0. Last on the agenda was Resolution 2023-15, a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the Springvale parking lot renovation project as detailed in specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval by the Board of Control, to enter into a contract for same with the lowest and best bidder. This project was also approved during the budget process and involves the repaving of the Springvale Golf Course and Ballroom parking lot. The project is not only a repaving of the parking service, but also will include the installation of 2 additional light poles, providing more lighting and safety to the parking lot. Director Pinchek explained that an estimate was provided by Bowen Engineering, but that the project could cost just slightly more based on current pricing of materials and labor. He further explained that there is a plan for the work to be done around the golf season and the peak ballroom rental season, as the project would be done in phases and a calculated area-by-area process. Ms. Hema made a motion to recommend to all of council Resolution 2023-5, seconded by Mr. Scarl. That motion passed 3-0. The meeting concluded at 7:47 p.m. And thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilman Glassburn, Chairman of the Finance Committee, do you have a report?
Yes, Mr. President, I have 2. Finance met for the first time on February 14th, 2023, starting at 7:47 and ending at 8:40. Present were council members Gilchrist, Glassburn, Heeman, Limpert, Madden, Scarl, and Williamson, the mayor, all of the directors, and the special assistant to the mayor. There were 3 items on the agenda: 2023-19, which is an ordinance amending and reestablishing Chapter 179 of the Administrative Code entitled Department of Economic and Community Development in order to create the position of Economic Development Coordinator within the department and declaring an emergency. This legislation, by adding the Economic Development Coordinator position, fully stands up our Economic Development Department to be a full department for the first time in North Olmsted's history. This was recommended by committee 3-0. Second on the agenda was 2023-20, which is an ordinance amending the rates of compensation for administrative personnel to add an economic development coordinator for the year 2023, and otherwise restating compensation rates and descriptions for various administrative and legislative personnel for the year 2023, declaring emergency as amended, which is all a long way to say that we added the salary for the economic development coordinator. That was recommended 3-0. Finally was 2023-21, which is an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of North Olmsted for the year ending December 31st, 2023, and declaring emergency, which is also known as the permanent budget. The permanent budget, in terms of the changes from temporary budget, includes a new fire engine, recreation field turf net, the economic development coordinator, and more. However, in that discussion, it was revealed that the revenue estimates from the temporary budget had not changed, and the item was held in committee for further discussion. That concluded the first meeting of Finance. Finance met again this evening, February 21st, 2023, at 7:30 and ended at 7:39. Present were all of council, the mayor, the director of law, HR, service, and recreation, and special assistant to the mayor. Again, on the agenda was 2023-21, commonly known as the permanent budget. Without a finance department representative, the decision was made to hold the legislation in committee. Chairman Glassburn cited the continued issue of the very low income tax projections. This budget forecast estimates income tax levels to decrease to a magnitude similar to the 2020 COVID shutdown. This was an issue in the temporary budget that remains unresolved. The item was held in committee again, 3-0. And so at this time, Mr. President, I would move to remove 2023-21 from tonight's agenda and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to remove Resolution 2023-21 from the agenda made by Councilman Glassburn and seconded by Councilman Limpert. Roll call, please.
Mr. Glassbern?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Motion to remove Resolution 2023-21 from the agenda passes by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. President, that concludes my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Scarl, Chairman of the Environmental Control Committee, do you have a report?
No report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilchrist, Chairwoman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, do you have a report?
I do not. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Madden, Chairman of the Streets and Transportation Committee, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a report. The Streets and Transportation Committee met on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023 at 8:40 p.m. Present were committee members Madden, Glassburn, and Gilchrist, council members Williamson, Limpert, Heeman, and Scarl. Present were the mayor, law director, finance director, economic development director, HR director, service director, recreation director, safety director, and mayor's special assistant and guests. The discussion at the committee meeting was concerning resolutions 2023-9, 2023-10, 2023-11, and 2023-12. Concerning the first three resolutions, the meeting began with Director Upton providing us with a map of the streets that will be scheduled for repairs this year in 2023. A short discussion followed that, indicating that the 2023, 9, 10, and 11 are all annual procedures requesting permission for the mayor to get bids on different repairs to streets. So I will go through each of them individually. First discussed was Resolution 2023-9, resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide new pavement markings to various streets and locations in the city as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. After review, the legislation was favorably recommended by a vote of 3-0. Next on the agenda was Resolution 2023-10, a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide crack sealing on various streets at various locations in the city, as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Again, the legislation was favorably recommended by a vote of 3-0. Next was Resolution 2023-11, resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract for the 2023 street resurfacing project as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Legislation was also favorably recommended by a vote of 3-0. Concerning Resolution 2023-12, Service Director Carney spoke on this and advised also that this is an annual process authorizing the purchase of concrete materials to do the repairs. And that resolution, 2023-12, resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to purchase concrete materials and related supplies for the year 2023, as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder and declaring an emergency. The legislation was favorably recommended also by a vote of 3-0, and our committee meeting concluded at 8:57. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any letters or communications to come before council at this time?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you for attending tonight's council meeting. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address council, please come to the podium, state and spell your name and address for the clerk. If you live in a city other than North Olmsted, please state the name of that city and proceed with your comments. You will have up to 5 minutes. Seeing no comments from the audience, we will now move into legislation.
Legislation on third reading, Resolution 2023-3, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Motorola to purchase 50 Motorola WatchGuard body cameras together with related technical assistance for deployment by the North Olmsted Division of Police at a cost of $139,569 through the state purchase program and funded through grants from the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-3 and ask for second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-3 made by Councilwoman Williamson, seconded by Councilman Madden. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-3 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance 2023-8, introduced by Mayor Jones and Councilwoman Heeman, an ordinance amending and restating Section 957.01 of Chapter 957, alcoholic beverages on public grounds of the codified ordinances of the City of North Olmsted in order to permit beer and wine to be sold and consumed at the Saturday in the Park concert series and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 2023-8 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2023-8 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilman Scarl. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-8 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Legislation on second reading, Resolution 2023-5, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the Director of Recreation and Public Engagement to solicit bids for sprayer equipment for application of fertilizer at Springvale Golf Course, and upon approval of the Board of Patrol, further authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings of 2023-5. This was heard in committee and reported on this evening, and based on the lag time that now is facing us and all cities, I think it's in the best interest of our residents and our finances to suspend the rules and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings for Resolution 2023-5 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilman Scarl. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2023-5, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman.
seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to adopt 2023-5 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-5 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilman Scarl. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-5 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2023-9, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide new pavement markings to various streets and locations in the city is detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Resolution 2023-10, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide crack sealing on various streets at various locations in the city as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Resolution 2023-11, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract for the 2023 street resurfacing project as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Resolution 2023-12, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to purchase concrete materials and related supplies for the year 2023 as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Councilman.
at this time I move to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings for Resolution 2023-12. Service Director has asked that we move ahead with the legislation in order to go ahead and purchase the materials before any further price increases.
Is there a
So
second?
can I ask for a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings for Resolution 2023-12, made by Councilman Madden and seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2023-12, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President, seeing none, at this time I move to adopt Resolution 2023-12 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-12 made by Councilman Madden, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-12 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2023-13, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the Director of Economic and Community Development to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide demolition services at Forest and Spruce Elementary Schools is detailed in specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder as amended. Resolution 2023-14, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the senior center and community cabin kitchen renovation project as detailed in specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to enter into a contract for same with the lowest and best bidder. Resolution 2023-15, introduced by Mayor Jones, resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the Springvale parking lot renovation project is detailed in specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to enter into a contract with this, for same with the lowest and best bidder. Resolution 2023-16, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution adopting the Cuyahoga County 2022 through 2027 All Hazards Mitigation Plan, and further directing the implementation thereof and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings as this matter was heard in committee and reported out this evening, and further, the county has requested the city adopt their ordinance in order to be in compliance with the county's requirements, and I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules requiring three readings for Resolution 2023-16, made by Councilwoman Williamson, seconded by Councilman Madden. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Glassman?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2023-16, please approach the podium now.
Seeing none, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-16 and ask for a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-16 made by Councilwoman Williamson, seconded by Councilman Madden. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Glassman?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-16 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance 2023-17, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement with Pathmaster, Inc. to install glance GPS preemption and priority traffic control signalization systems through the state purchase program at a cost of $305,635 in approved ARPA funds, and upon approval of the Board of Control, further authorizing the mayor to execute contract documents and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 2023-19, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance amending and reestablishing Chapter 179 of the Administrative Code entitled Department of Economic and Community Development in order to create the position of Economic Development Coordinator within the department and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 2023-20, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance amending the rates of compensation for administrative personnel to add an Economic Development Coordinator for the year 2023, and otherwise restating the compensation rates and descriptions for various administrative and legislative personnel for the year 2023 and declaring an emergency as amended. Legislation on first reading. Ordinance 2023-23, an ordinance to make appropriations for the demolition of Spruce Elementary for the year ending December 31st, 2023.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Ordinance 2023-24, an ordinance amending section 145.99D of Chapter 145 of the Administrative Code entitled Department of Recreation and Public Engagement for the purpose of creating part-time personnel, support personnel in the Division of Aging and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2023-25, a resolution dispensing with the RFP process and authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Vasco Sports Contractors to provide for turf maintenance at the recreation center and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2023-26, a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Safety to request proposals, RFP, from qualified companies to provide wellness program services for the city's public safety personnel, and further authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to enter into a contract with the company selected in the RFP process and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce, place on first reading, and request suspension of the rule requiring three readings and formal committee review.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules of council requiring three readings and formal committee review. As the mayor discussed this matter in caucus this evening, passage of this legislation will allow for the city to obtain RFPs so the program can be implemented as soon as possible. And I ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules requiring three readings and formal committee review for Resolution 2023-26 is made by Councilwoman Williamson and seconded by Councilman Madden. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Glassman?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2023-26, please approach the podium now.
Seeing none, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-26 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-26 made by Councilwoman Williamson, seconded by Councilman Madden. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Glassberg?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-26 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance 2023-27, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 5-year lease agreement with Motorola to install dispatchers console model MCC 7500E through the state purchase program at an annual cost of $162,288.49, and further authorizing the mayor to execute contract documents and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Ordinance 2023-28, an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to accept the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council NOPEC Energized Community Grants for 2023, further authorizing the mayor to enter into grant agreements and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2023-29, a resolution dispensing with the formal RFP process and authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Vision Benefits of America, Inc., VBA, to provide for employee health care benefits.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2023-30, a resolution authorizing the Director of Economic and Community Development to solicit statements of qualifications, SOQ, from qualified individuals or firms to provide housing market analysis for the city of North Olmsted, including Forest Elementary School property, and further authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to enter into a contract upon review and selection of SOQs.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2023-31, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a rental services agreement with Cintas for uniforms and supplies for several departments by and through participation in the state purchase program, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all contract documents and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Thank you. I'm going to revise the start time for the Committee of the Whole scheduled for Tuesday, February 28th, to begin at 7 p.m. instead of 6:45 p.m. to hear the Economic Development Strategic Plan presentation. Also going to schedule a public hearing for Tuesday, April 4th, 2023 at 7:40 p.m. The purpose of the public hearing will be to discuss ordinance 2023-18. Moving into scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, February 28th, 2023. Councilwoman Williamson for Public Safety, Health, and Welfare.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to schedule the Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee meeting at 7:30 p.m. to address ordinance 2023-27, and I would ask that the mayor or her designee be present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lippert for Building, Zoning, and Development.
Yes, I'd like to schedule that at 7:30, and that would be to address 2023-30, 7:35, thank you, yeah. And ask that the mayor or economic development director be present.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman for Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to schedule 7:40 to 7:45, please, to discuss 2023-24 and 2023-25. The mayor, her designee, Mr. Pinchuk preferably, but if the mayor elects someone else, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilman Glassburn for Finance.
I'm sorry, so the last committee was at what time?
7:45.
I'm sorry. So the Finance Committee will meet at, I'm sorry.
7:45.
7:45. And consider 2023-21, 23, 28, 29, and 31, and would request the Directors of Finance, Economic Development, HR, and the Mayor's designee.
Thank you. With the agenda being completed and there being no further business to come before council, this meeting of February 21st, 2023 is adjourned at 8:51 PM.
I am going to close.